Welcome into episode 18 of the PrintFest DFS podcast. My name is Justin Rue alongside Scott Bandy. And week 14 was a week where we did not play Derrick Henry again. And yeah, he just jammed it right down our throats. I know you swapped off of Adams and um, ended up not really mattering anyway. You would have been dusted out just as I was. So I ended up winning 18.8% of my head-to-heads. Ended up scoring 125.3. Line of cash was, what was it, like 145 or so?
46.
146, yeah. So yeah, I mean, just 21 points below line of cash. I mean, that's just obviously not going to cut it. So we're going to break down both of our lineups, and we'll start at quarterback. We both ended up going with Kirk Cousins, and we talked about him on Friday. He was on the road taking on Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay has been shredded by opposing passers over the last 5 games, and Kirk Cousins, we expected an increase in pass attempts. He got that. He ended up throwing the ball 37 times. Unfortunately, he was not very efficient. Only threw one touchdown, and he had like 6 yards per attempt. So yeah, he ended up putting up 18 points. Like, he's not the reason that we lost. 18 points was right at 3x for his salary. So I mean, obviously not going to kill you. Quarterback rarely does kill you, but yeah, honestly, I still think that process was fine playing Cousins. Maybe we could have gone down to Jalen Hurts, um, but I was fine with Cousins though.
Yeah, the process-wise, I still feel fine with the play. I mean, it was a bad game from what we were expecting. I mean, we actually ran hot with his rushing yards. He had 41
Yeah,
yards on the ground, which
yeah,
I mean, we definitely didn't expect that, and definitely helped us out because I mean, after being efficient all year, he was not that yesterday. And Mike Zimmer did what Mike Zimmer does, and he established it with Dalvin, and it actually worked for some of the game. They should have won the game if Dan Bailey could kick.
yeah.
But yeah, it was just a really frustrating game to watch. I mean, we got the third string tight end out here out scoring Jefferson and Thielen, man. Like it's just a run bad game. That's really all there is to it. Process wise, I still feel fine at that price tag, 6.2K. He was just too cheap for that matchup, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think that the only other quarterback I was really considering was Rodgers, and then yeah, obviously he smashed, and then and Jalen Hurts down, just getting the rushing yards from Jalen Hurts at 5,100. Should have tried to find something in there. I played around with some Jalen Hurts lineups. Ultimately couldn't really find anything I really liked with Jalen Hurts. I didn't really like the lineups I was constructing with him, so I ended up just going with Cousins and stacking him with Thielen. So at running back, we both played the trio of Dave Montgomery, who total smash, taking on Houston. I thought he was great, 6,500. At home, taking on the poorest run defense. We talked about how just terrible the Texans' run defense is. David Montgomery, 6,500. His workload's locked in, and he certainly got there. He's been on fire the last couple weeks.
Yeah, I mean, that was another great spot. Houston is giving up, well, now they've given up 16 RB1s through 14 games played, which is just mind blowing. I'm not even sure, like how? Like they're that bad on the ground. So it's just another matchup that we'll be targeting every week. And David Montgomery just seems like a different player this year, to be
Yeah.
frank. So, yeah, he was the only thing that really gave my life any bit of hope whatsoever. So,
Yeah, I feel really good about the process on Dave Montgomery. Just getting a running back who's going to play 75+% of the snaps at home against a bad run defense at a middling price. I'm cool with it all day. So DeAndre Washington, he opened up with Miles Gaskin going on the IR or on the COVID IR on Saturday. And so he at 4K minimum price, he ended up getting 15 touches, a couple catches in the passing game. Um, only ended up scoring 7.2, and it didn't end up getting there. But I think at that price at 4K, I think that I would probably do it again, given what it opens up for the rest of the slate. I think I would play game. If you give me 15 touches at 4K, I think I play it every time in cash.
Yeah, and I mean it was a pretty good matchup too. Early on, we thought our game script was great when they were up 10-0 on the Chiefs. That didn't last long, but yeah, I mean he got the touches, it just didn't get the production. I mean, he was 4K for a reason. He's a third string running back, so it's definitely to be expected. I'm not mad about the outcome. He opened up, the ability to get up to Aaron Jones and Adams, and for me Jefferson, for you Thielen. So that's why we go with that kind of guy. And as soon as Gaskin went on the COVID list, I mean, it was really hard to get anywhere else off of Washington if without completely changing our lineup construction.
Yeah, and then we also all played Aaron Jones. And so, Aaron Jones, we know what his workload is. We know he plays like 60% of the snaps. We know he gets like 15 to 20 touches, not anything really less than that, not anything really more than that. So maybe it kind of limits his ceiling, but, taking on this just terrible Detroit run D, he ended up getting 17 touches on 70% of the snaps. So he kind of got the workload that we expected. We know he's going to split with Jamal Williams, but just did not get anything going really. He ended up having 69 rushing yards and 2 receptions for 6 yards receiving. So, 9.5 points, that's 7.6K certainly hurt when Derrick Henry was $900 or no, 1,100 more expensive and ended up going for a 40 burger. So, yeah, it certainly hurt process wise on Aaron Jones. It's hard to tell, if it was bad playing Aaron Jones at 7,600 when he's not going to get, a full bell cow workload. Look, we know his upside of touches is never going to really get up over 20. Um, so it's tough. It's tough because the matchup was so nice for him.
Yeah, I mean, the ownership on him kind of was just the cherry on top too, because we both expected him to be. I mean, I thought he'd be at least 25 to 30% owned and double ups and 50-50s, and I think he was actually like 18 or 19%. So
Mhm.
when he hits the floor with his worst game here at that ownership, man, it really does hurt.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and then so we both played all three of those guys and Cousins. So um, originally we both did have Adams, and then you pivoted off, to try to get some kind of leverage off of Adams down to DK Metcalf, which I thought was really smart. So we'll just go with Adams. So Adams just keeps doing it. I mean, yeah, 9,300. He ended up scoring 27 and a half, so he got there, point per dollar wise. But I mean, God, just a total smasher again, 7 for 115 and one. Just he's as consistent as it comes. I never feel bad playing Devontae Adams, and he very rarely ever hurts us for playing him. So I'm happy with the process of playing him, and I think it was smart for you to try to pivot off and try to claw something back. I thought that was a good pivot to Metcalf, who was like 7%.
Yeah, basically. So heading into the late slate, I was down, and I knew that with the guys I had left, which being Adams, Aaron Jones, Brashad Perriman, and then I had Eagles defense, I had all the chalk,
Yeah.
right? And I thought so. So if I have all the chalk and I'm down, it's going to be really, really, really difficult for me to get up and make any type of money. So
Yep.
basically, I knew I had to get leverage over the field somewhere. That ultimately meant I moved down from Devontae Adams to DK Metcalf, who I knew would not have any ownership. I think he was like 8% owned, who has, in my opinion, equal upside to Devontae Adams. Not the best game script, as you can see. I mean, the Jets didn't put up a fight, but I figured, he could still put up, 10 for 130 and two. Like DK Metcalf's done that plenty of times. So, and that brought me up from Eagles defense to Seahawks defense, which I knew Seahawks defense was going to be chalky, but I liked their chances of, having a blow up spot better than the Eagles. And it was really tilting when I saw Adams was 50% owned, and then he scores that 52-yard touchdown like a couple minutes into the game, and I'm like, oh my god, man, I should have stayed on Adams, moved down from Aaron Jones. There was a couple things I was fooling around with, one of which was going Keenan Allen instead of Metcalf, and then moving up from Perriman to I
It
can't
was
remember
Aguilar or
now,
something like
but
that.
there's just I think it was Aguilar, which I was like, I'm not going to play Aguilar. Like, there's no
Yeah.
shot. I thought about staying on Adams, moving down to Carson, and then moving up my defense. Ultimately, nothing I did really would have changed my outcome all that much. I don't think because I mean this is just a shitty lineup. I mean Cousins and Jefferson. I mean we'll talk about that in a minute. Them that was what really hurt because they had no ownership really. So yeah, I was forced to swap to get some leverage. It just didn't work out. But process wise, if I would have stayed, I would have just accepted defeat. So
Yeah.
um,
No, that was smart.
it is.
It was definitely smart. Yeah, Perriman. So we'll move on to Perriman play. We both ended up playing Perriman at 3,900 with no Denzel Mims, who gets the same kind of targets as him. And then with Crowder being on the injury report and potentially missing, and he ended up playing the game, which, I guess doesn't really matter too much. I thought the Perriman taking on the Seattle defense was really strong at 3,900. And he ended up running the most routes on the team, playing the most amount of snaps, and scoring 5.6 points. I mean, 3,900. Perriman's certainly not the reason that we got smoked. He was like 35 or so percent owned. And I thought Perriman was really a solid play. I would probably play him again in the spot.
Yeah, he was perfectly fine with no Denzel Mims. That opens up a ton of air yards, and he's already been getting a ton. Crowder playing put a damper on things, but he wasn't even really all that involved. So it was just one of those spots where the Jets are being the Jets, and they just couldn't do anything at all against one of the worst defenses in the league. So,
Maybe we
but
just
at
have to
3,900 for the projected,
maybe we just have to just exclude the Jets.
go ahead. Yeah,
Just exclude the Jets.
probably.
But so Cousins so I end up going with Thielen and you end up going with Jefferson. I thought both were in really nice spots, against Tampa Bay, who was just getting trucked through the air. I mean, they really just been like a pass funnel. And then it gave us a stack with Cousins, so it gives you that kind of upside that we like to see. Um, and man, they just both flopped. It's just a total flop from this entire Minnesota offense. Just it's just bad, which is not good.
Yeah, and I mean, 9 out of 10 times we don't see Irv Smith, C.J. Ham, and Tyler Conklin up there getting all these targets. I mean, and Jefferson ended up with 8 targets, which is fine enough. Um, Only 4 catches for 39 yards. I basically just went with Jefferson over Thielen based on feel alone. I just had a gut feeling and went with it. But obviously, I thought both of them were in smash spots. They just didn't get there. And I mean, process wise, I still think they were great plays. The Bucks have been getting absolutely trucked through the air the last month. They're giving up the most points to opposing receivers, so the matchup was there.
Yeah.
Um, it just was a bad day for the Vikings. Just simply put, I mean, it ran bad. Like we say all the time, it's process over results. And process wise, I'm fine. It's just what killed us is that they weren't owned, right? And the guys that were owned, like Curtis Samuel, put up 16 at a much discounted price. So obviously that would have helped. Kiki at least got in the box to salvage his day. That would have helped us out. Um, Robbie Anderson, I think he was fine. And then obviously not having Derrick Henry, like the issue is that a lot of the chalky guys that we faded hit. So when we play someone like Cousins Jefferson and they get us a combined 25 to 30 points, it's not going to cut it.
Yeah, and I'm perfectly fine taking these low owned guys. If I like them and they're in good spots, I'm just gonna play them. And maybe it's a mistake, but that's just the way I play. Is that if I like these guys and they're in good spots, um, yeah, I'm just gonna play them regardless of what the ownership is on them. And I know it's a higher variance way of playing, but that's the way I like to play. Um, and sometimes you get hammered, and sometimes you hammer people. So it's just kind of the way it goes with that. So wrapping up here, we both ended up going with Jordan Akins at tight end. And Jordan Akins, I mean, the guy, it's just like he can't catch anything. He ended up going 3 for 20, had 5 points at 2,900, whatever. We talk about all the time, punt off tight end. I thought that with no Brandon Cooks Obviously, no Will Fuller, no Kenny Stills, no Randall Cobb. I mean, we're talking about like Kiki Cutie, who is not some kind of target hog. We're talking about Chad Hansen, who's a practice squad guy that they bring up. Stephen Mitchell is another practice squad guy. I thought Jordan Akins, I mean, at 2,900, I thought they were going to run a ton of two tight end sets. I thought, he was out there a lot. He's out there running routes. Ended up getting an end zone target. But ultimately, Houston got smoked. They lost 36-7. But I'm perfectly happy attaching my basically min-price tight end to an elite quarterback in Deshaun Watson. It was a debate to play Akins or Komet, and I much preferred Akins in this spot for the reason of attaching my tight end to Deshaun Watson instead of Mitchell Trubisky. And then we also already had David Montgomery, so I didn't want to play Komet and Montgomery in that spot, kind of limit my upside. So ultimately, Akins I thought was a good play, but just didn't get there.
Well, I mean, frankly, he should have smashed. Like he had a touchdown that I could have scored. Like the ball just straight hit him. Like he never saw the ball,
You're
and
right.
I mean, we were just so tilted with him. I mean, geez, he was completely wide open. The ball just hits him in the arm. Like, I mean, come on, dude. Like that should have been what? That's probably 8 more points that we should have had. So that should have been 13 points. And we're sitting here saying, "Oh, Jordan Akins, great." I mean, it was great.
Yeah,
So I mean,
right, exactly. I think the sun got
that
in his
sucks.
eye.
But for me, yeah, for me, it was the same thing. It was just I would rather pair. I'd rather trust Deshaun Watson than Mitch Trubisky. That's really all it was for me.
Yeah, and then at defense, I ended up rolling with the Cowboys. I thought they were in a really nice spot. I was debating Cowboys or Eagles most of the week, and I ended up going with the Cowboys because I had the salary. And man, I mean, they just obliterated Cincinnati. I'm always good to punt off defense. So yeah, Cowboys ended up scoring me 18 and really bailing me out there. Didn't really matter anyway. And then you end up going with Seahawks. They ended up being just fine. They were 3K, scored 12 points. I mean, both our defenses end up being fine.
Yeah, I mean, for what it's worth, before the swap, I was on the Eagles. I preferred the Cowboys, but when I threw Jefferson in, it took that salary away, so I was forced to move down. Still don't believe in Taysom Hill. Like I'm still waiting on the game where he just unravels, and the Eagles' defense is good enough to where, at 2,200, I don't mind them at all. So I mean, like we say every week, I mean, it's defense. We don't really put that much thought into it.
Yeah.
I think the Eagles' defense ended up scoring 9, so they would have been fine too.
Yep. So yeah, I mean, last week we totally clean sweep. This week, we kind of get humbled, and that's just kind of the way it goes. I think that moving forward, this Derrick Henry thing, we really have to just stop being so stubborn and stop worrying about him not catching any passes and just realize that he's a total freak. And if they're going to be in positive game script against a bad run D, that he is going to smash. And he's got the highest upside of any player in fantasy. Maybe Tyreek Hill can match him, but yeah, I think that I haven't played Derrick Henry at all. I don't think I played him at all this entire year. I never played Derrick Henry, and maybe that's been a mistake and it's been costing me money. And that's something that I just have to get over, that he's not going to catch any passes. So, but with that, that's going to do it for episode 18 of the Print Fest DFS podcast. We'll be back on Friday night breaking down our favorite plays of the Week 15 DraftKings main slate. We have 3 slates left in the regular season, and then we get to the playoffs. So until then, good luck, everybody.